When you're building AI integrations, APIs alone don't always scale. So in the next 5 minutes, I'll show you a clear framework for deciding when APIs still work and when MCP is the better fit. And if you stick around longer, I'll also reveal what it actually takes to build the same integration with APIs versus MCP. Hello and welcome to Mailtrap Videos, where we explore the world of emails. Before we dive in, just a quick refresher. An API is a way for one software to talk to another using fixed rules, while MCP is a way for AI to find and use tools by itself. And in this video, we're zooming in on the system-level differences between the two, so you can choose the right tool and avoid over-engineering long-term. Now then, back to the program. APIs, also known as Application Programming Interfaces, have been the backbone of software integration for decades, but they come with an inherent problem. You see, every API, no matter how complex or simple it is unique, which means endpoints, parameters, and rules are just some of the moving parts that vary from one API service to another. And if you look at this from the perspective of a developer trying to connect an AI agent to a handful of different systems via API, you're suddenly dealing with a separate integration for each service, multiple sets of documentation to work through, different authentication flows to manage, and error handling that never looks the same. Scary, right? Things get even worse if you want the AI agent to discover and use any external services on its own. So how did this model get so messy? Well, it's pretty simple. But before I tell you more, a quick reminder to click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss other useful videos like this one. You see, APIs were never designed for integration without the hands of human developers. Instead, APIs expect someone to read their docs and make the integration happen. But in 2026, when AI shows up in every product and workflow imaginable, those expectations cause more harm than good. And that's exactly the problem MCP was built to solve. You can think of MCP as a USB-C port for AI applications. Just like how USB-C standardizes connections between different devices, such as your laptop, your monitor, and your phone charger, MCP standardizes how AI models connect to external tools and data sources. On top of that, it also changes how actions are triggered and executed. Here's what I mean. With MCP, you tell the AI what you want to get done, and it figures out how to do it on its own. No endpoints to memorize, and no flows to wire together. With a traditional API, on the other hand, you tell a system exactly what to do by giving explicit instructions. This means you have to define the flow, the order of calls, and every possible path ahead of time. Still, there is one important thing I should note. Many MCP servers are actually wrappers around existing APIs. For example, a backend MCP layer will translate MCP tool calls into traditional REST API requests under the hood. In other words, MCP doesn't replace your API infrastructure, it just adds an AI-friendly layer on top. So think of APIs as the highways for data, MCP as the vehicle designed for AI to drive on those highways, and the AI agent as the driver deciding where to go. Here's a simple example to make this a little more concrete. Let's say you're building an AI agent that needs to pull user analytics from a database. When using a typical API, your to-do list for this task is quite long. First, you have to find the right database or analytics API endpoint. Then you need to understand the required parameters like filters, limits, permissions, and query structure. Once you have all that, you can then write the request logic and handle authentication. And of course, you can't forget about dealing with pagination, errors, and formatting. That's 4 distinct steps to manually work through just for one simple request. With MCP, things move through a much simpler flow. First, the AI agent connects to an MCP server and asks what data tools are available. The server responds with available database tools and query capabilities. From there, the AI selects the right tool, builds the query, and runs it, all in a single loop, without you micromanaging every step. So what does all of this actually mean for your AI integrations design? Well, for starters, it doesn't mean APIs are suddenly obsolete. In fact, a lot of API patterns still work extremely well, as long as the AI using them isn't making independent decisions. For example, if a workflow is fixed and predictable, APIs are usually the simplest option. If a human or a backend service is driving the logic, APIs can handle execution cleanly. If you know in advance which endpoints will be called and when, APIs serve as a reliable contract. And if performance, cost, or strict control are top priorities, APIs fit naturally into that model. In contrast, if an AI agent needs to decide which tool to use on its own, adapt to new capabilities over time, work across multiple services without hard-coded logic, or explore what's possible based on context, traditional APIs start requiring too much glue code and too much branching logic. So, in a nutshell, when tight control and predictable behavior are involved, APIs are the better fit. But once AI agents are expected to reason, adapt, and scale across tools, MCP starts to make a lot more sense. Okay, so that's the theory. Now, let's see what this actually looks like in a real integration. Because it's one thing to talk about APIs in MCP, but seeing how they behave in the same setup is a totally different ballgame. Email integration is one of those cases where the trade-offs between the two approaches show up almost immediately. So, to demonstrate the difference between API and MCP-based email integration for AI agents, I'll use a solution that conveniently offers both options. Mailtrap is an email platform built for developers and product teams who want their emails to actually reach inboxes. So let's break down what it takes for an AI agent to use Mailtrap's email API. To integrate an email API with an AI agent, you first need to generate an API token and choose whether you'll be sending transactional or bulk emails. From there, you either wire the credentials into your code manually or use one of the provided SDKs or code samples to build the authenticated request. This step consists of a few tasks. First, you have to expose send email as a tool the agent can call, define a strict input schema, and decide what the agent is allowed to send. Then you implement guardrails such as recipient allow lists, rate limits, and approval steps. You add logging so you can trace every send back to the prompt that triggered it. And because email is a network operation, you also need to include retries, idempotency, and error handling for bounces, 4xx and 5xx responses and timeouts. Finally, as your agent's capabilities and workflows will evolve, you have to keep maintaining and updating this entire layer. As you can see, even with Mailtrap handling much of the heavy lifting, this is still a multi-step setup. So now, let's look at the faster option, Mailtrap MCP. First, instead of wiring up SDKs or request logic, to set up the MCP server, you simply connect Mailtrap directly to your AI environment and give the agent permission to send emails. Then, once the connection is in place and credentials are added, the agent immediately gets access to Mailtrap's email infrastructure. From there, sending emails is enabled and prompt-driven, regardless if your messages are plain text, HTML, or contain multiple recipients. Easy as ABC, if you ask me. So, for the million-dollar question, will MCP replace APIs? Final answers? The correct answer is no. Yeah, I'm not really sure game show hosting is my thing. But what I am sure of is that APIs are here to stay. They're just not always the right tool anymore. Once there is a need to let AI start making decisions, MCP gives you a cleaner, more flexible way to design integrations. And honestly, that's quite hard to argue with. Now that you know how MCP changes the way AI agents work with tools, see how it plays out in a real dev setup in our cursor tutorial. We'll see you there.